It's time for a bottle battle between two light iris fragrances for men.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the channel J-ROYL, everyone. My name is James, and this segment is called the Royal Rumble, where we get fragrances to fight to the death. Iris is a note in fragrances that has slowly become more popular in the last decade or so. It's not normally associated with men's fragrances, but there are a lot of fragrances that have it. Today's bottle battle is actually a redundant rumble because these two fragrances are pretty similar. Dior Homme Eau for men versus Prada L'Homme. Both fragrances showcase the note of iris. Both are fairly fresh and light without having a dominant amount of citrus notes. Starting with Dior Homme Eau for men. This was a Macy's exclusive back in 2014, and of course is a flanker of Dior Homme. What does this fragrance do differently from the rest of the line? It's light and fairly simplistic in its composition. While the original had leather and cocoa to sort of round out that almost gourmand-like quality combined with the iris, this guy really just focuses on the iris. What I get is a very clean, simple iris fragrance. It's a very nice representation of iris for men because it isn't drowned out by a whole bunch of other floral notes that some iris fragrances have. Prada L'Homme, same thing. The main dominant note is definitely iris. There's maybe a tad less citrus in this one, but instead it's replaced by a neroli accord, and it gets a bit powdery and a little bit more ambery in the dry down. So let's compare the two. First one being projection. Although it's fairly hard for me to judge because they are very similar, I find that Prada L'Homme projects a bit louder off the top, just because of that bright neroli. I feel neroli has a very strong presence off the top, but of course it doesn't really last a long time. Projection for the first 2 hours is pretty strong in both. I noticed Prada L'Homme on myself a bit more. Longevity, I would give the slight edge to Dior Homme Eau. For whatever reason, this fragrance lasts a little bit longer on my skin, maybe because of the more substantial notes with the coriander, and there's even a little bit of cedar in the base. The iris is more straightforward and potent in this one as well. 7 hours on my skin with this fragrance when compared to 5 or 6 with Prada L'Homme. Scent-wise, pretty similar, guys. Although not identical fragrances because the notes are slightly different, really what I get is this one's a bit more straightforward with the iris, while Prada L'Homme is a little more floral, a little powdery, so it really comes down to personal preference. Price-wise, I'd give a slight edge to Prada L'Homme. I found this 150ml bottle for pretty cheap. Although Dior's supply chain isn't as tight as Chanel, for example, it is still tricky to find this even in the gray market for a pretty low price. So if I had to pick a winner, which one would it be? Dior Homme Eau for men. This fragrance wins for a few reasons. The first one being, I love the Dior Homme DNA. I love the entire line, and this definitely has that signature iris that I fell in love with. What's also nice is because of the fact that iris is showcased a little bit better, it's not muddled by other notes. And I find the neroli in Prada L'Homme just makes it a bit too floral for my taste. The way the iris and the neroli interact kind of makes it a bit feminine. In fact, when I showed Prada L'Homme to my friend Kirsten,
I like this one for a man and this one for me.
Really? She wanted to buy it for herself. Also, because I'm a collector and I do love the Dior Homme line, I want the whole line. And if I'm gonna have the whole line, I gotta have this. And if I have this becomes pretty redundant to me. I would definitely encourage you guys to try both of these fragrances, but they do definitely fall into the redundant category. So pick one or the other. Don't be like me and have both. All of our links to the Facebook group and Instagram are down below. And if you like what you see, excuse the hair, then go ahead and like this video. What's your favorite? Dior Homme Eau for men or Prada L'Homme? And only answer if you've tried both, please. Winner! Dior Homme Eau for men. Peace.
What's that?
You see I'm left off Baton Rouge?
What?
You see I'm left off Baton Rouge?
What?
Do it look like I'm left off Baton Rouge?
What?
Do it look like I'm left off Baton Rouge?